and it's going to burn you. No doubt about it.
Sportsfeld!
It is Sportsfeld. We are talking about the 2015 Blue Jays finally. People tell us all the time, they say, we love your show, but you never ever talk about the 2015 Blue Jays. Why the heck aren't you talking about 2015 Blue Jays? All kidding aside, last episode we went over it. We talked about the unbelievable moment, the moment of moments, the definitive moment of this century for the Toronto Blue Jays, the very bat flip. Talk just about the bat flip. We didn't even let that game finish. You almost, it's a funny thing, Jake. I think this happens sometimes with the bat flip, especially, is like you sort of forget that that game wasn't over. Like, it's not a walk-off. It's just the seventh inning. There's still 9 outs that happen in that game. That the bench is clear twice in that inning as Edwin Encarnacion waits for the crowd to stop being insane before he gets into the batter's box. And then I believe somebody looks at Troy Tulowitzki and he decides he hates that. A lot of tensions and really the beginning of what would be not the longest rivalry in the world, but a rivalry nonetheless between the Jays and the Rangers.
In a lot of ways, I think it's a perfect rivalry. It lasted exactly 1 year and the Blue Jays won pretty much every time.
Yeah, that is, in terms of ideal rivalries, that's how I would draw it up as well. One year long, and the Jays completely dominated it from start to finish.
Riff Nerador punched somebody is like the biggest win the Rangers got. And now the Rangers are a mess of a franchise and we get to just laugh at them the rest of the time.
It is pretty great, as in the time between, both teams would meet the next year in the playoffs. The Jays would take care of business against Texas. There is, of course, the punch you mentioned, but very quickly, 5 short years later, the Jays able to rebuild a pretty good team, whereas Texas has lost hundreds of games and nothing else. Yeah, interesting wrinkle, as of course the Jays do close that game out, and then is the middle of the next year. I believe it was May. Was rather get punched out in May than knocked out in October was the excellent sign in the Rogers Center. It is Jose Bautista sliding hard into second base. Rougned Odor deciding, hey, I'm going to punch you in the face over this, which, Jake, to be totally honest with you, from my experience, this became a bigger moment for Yankees fans than it did for Rangers fans. Do you notice that?
How do you mean?
Yankees fans love to post that picture more than anybody that represent. Like, Yankees fans think that's the funniest thing in the world for some reason.
I guess it's because
they hated Jose Bautista.
Yeah, and it's a way to sort of be involved even though they weren't involved kind of thing. And it's the Yankees and the Jays will forever be intertwined as long as alignment stays the same. So yeah. I kind of get it. I think it's lame and it's lame when the Rangers fans post it. It's like, woohoo, you fucking punched a guy in a fight and then he beat you in the playoffs again. Like it's a dumb thing to hang your hat on. But if
it helps at all, Jake, both of the greatest moments in Rangers history are somebody punching somebody.
What's the other one?
Nolan Ryan.
Oh, of course, right.
Nolan Ryan on Robin Ventura was their greatest moment until Rougned Odor punched Jose Bautista. Those are the 2 moments that Rangers fans have to look at and go, wow, what a good team we have.
At least the first playoff game in Texas, they lost 10-0. First game after that, I should say.
That does bring me to, I think, low key. I mean, we talked about a lot of things in this show. We talked about the Kansas City series, which we won't get into here because we did 4 episodes about it. If you want to get into that Kansas City series, it is also available as a story time. But the 2016 ALDS, after the Blue Jays had won the wild card game, quietly one of my favorite series of games ever, because the Blue Jays I remember, because this is the last Sportsfeld we did before the long break, was we were like, well, the series is going to go all 5 games. That's just what these 2 teams do. But no, the Blue Jays win 10-1 in game 1 behind 5 runs in the 3rd inning, 2 more in the 4th, 3 more in the 9th. Home runs from Upton, 2 from Bautista. Really, really, really super great, that Jays Rangers 2016 series.
work with the softball in the bullpen as Bautista sends one to left, and there she goes. Jose Bautista strikes again. 3-run home run for the Blue Jays. Bautista's second of the postseason, and opens this one up to a 10-0.
Yeah, I think that game one is an underrated, fun Blue Jays game, understandably overshadowed by what happened directly before it and then directly after it. But I remember watching that one and being like, that whole game had a real, like, is this really happening feeling?
Hooting and hollering.
Yeah, exactly. Because we were nervous for that series. There was every reason to believe that series, as we said, that series was going 5 games. And then they came out and just punched them right in the mouth, so to speak. And it was like, oh, okay then. It was great. It was great. I loved it.
It was Cole Hamels taking the brunt of both Game 5 in 2015 and Game 1 in 2016. And I think Cole Hamels being there was sort of the like, oh, we're Teflon here.
Yeah.
Absolutely excellent. And then in Game 2, it was J.A. Happ against Yu Darvish, who I believe it was garbage. Was the Yu Darvish. 2 in the second, 3 more in the fifth to make it a 5-3 win for the Blue Jays in that one. Home runs from Tulo, Pilar, Zeke, and Edwin and Encarnacion. A super fun time to be watching the Blue Jays.
Weirdly good series from Zeke Carrera. I will say that. See,
this was the Photoshop of Zeke Carrera in the Ring of Excellence series, if I'm not mistaken. One of my favorite tweets of the era.
This is a weird series. It's a really weird. That second Texas series is really strange. It felt very surreal the whole time, even when it was happening. And it was because I don't think any of us really believed in that Blue Jays team that much.
They had done everything they could to strip us of belief because they only won 89 games. They were worse than the 2021 Blue Jays.
They limped in. Could not limp in more.
They started the year us being like, okay, they're going to turn it on. They're going to have that run. It's going to happen. It never really did happen. I remember they swept out at Fenway to host the wild card game. That ended up being very important. But yeah, it wasn't the same sort of like unbeatable swagger because the pitching staff was incredible, but the hitting didn't quite match up this year. And then it was like, we had the pitching numbers, but maybe we don't have the top end sort of thing. And, Texas won 95 games and they had Darvish and they had Hamels and they had all these different guys, Carlos Beltran and a lot of different reasons for them to be a pretty darn good team. But the Blue Jays have sort of had their number, and it culminates in the Donaldson Dash game. It is Game 3, October 9th, 2016. The Blue Jays a 3-1 lead in the first inning, a 5-2 lead through 3. They would all but squander it. It is Aaron Sanchez giving up 6 runs over 5 2/3. Joe Biagini blows the save, which you'd love to see pervertedly. Yeah, pervertedly. Joe Biagini.
Again, like another really strange game.
Yeah.
Just like this whole series has sort of like, even rewatching it now, like you on YouTube and rewatch it, there's a weird, weird feeling to it rewatching it. It was like unbelievable as it was happening. The games all shook out, maybe just because it was so against like what was expected, but it all just shook out real strange to me.
It all comes down to, it gets into extra innings as we get into the 10th inning. It goes down as the Donaldson Dash, I believe, is I love when games get little taglines. I just absolutely love it. It's the 10th inning. Donaldson leads off the inning with a double, and then Russell Martin to Andrews to Odor. The throw is terrible. Donaldson goes from second and scores all the way with the flying diving slide, the arm up in the air. That great photo of the bench clearing. So hilarious to have just watched the 7th inning, to have seen the entire thing revolve around Russell Martin and Elvis Andrus, and the series to end on another routine ground ball from Martin to Andrus. And then Odor, who inserts himself into this story in the middle of the summer, being the last guy to touch the ball for Texas. Absolutely brutal throw to first. Moreland can't handle it. Donaldson, one of, 24 moments that he has over his very short time with the Blue Jays, that incredible dash home, seeing it all the way, going the whole way. One of many very special moments that this team would have with him on the back.
Another payoff. And Martin on the ground. Andrews makes a play, goes to second, out there, throw to first. Oh, and what a play. But here comes a runner, Donaldson. He's saved. He's saved. The ball game is over. The Blue Jays are moving on to the ALCS.
There's a really great YouTube video someone took from the 500s that captures from like the 500s vantage point the entire play. Mm-hmm. And absolutely insane base running from Josh Donaldson.
Madness.
It's truly psychotic. If he had been out and they had lost the game or the series, that would be one of the most ridiculed moments ever.
I guess your rationale is, of course, is if the play at first is made, the inning is over anyway.
Yes, that's very true.
But if Moreland makes the catch and the runner is safe and he throws home, Donaldson is out by 100 feet. Like, it's absolute madness. But that's what he did. That's sort of him in a nutshell as a guy, and a special moment with a guy that provided an awful lot of special moments.
For all the, I don't want to say shortcomings, but I guess the coming up shorts that the 2015-16 Blue Jays did, sure are a lot of just like unbelievable, unforgettable moments, which, what else do you want?
Yeah, the Jays would go forward to play the Clevelands. Your uncle on full alert that the guys in charge of the Jays now were from Cleveland. And this was a very early residual, like, we're mad at Shapiro and Atkins days. Justice for Alex, who I think went to the Dodgers right away.
I think you're right. And not as like an AGM, I want to say.
Yes. Jays don't score in the first game and lose 2-0. They lose 2-1 in the second game. And it was pretty close to panic zone. Then they lose. They go down 3-0. They really did not look sharp in the first 3 games of this series, only scoring 3 runs in the first 3 games, which was supposed to be a high-powered offense. It all turns around, and that's sort of not totally true. But the Trevor Bauer playing with the drone.
Drone finger. That's a weird series. And like in retrospect, not weird. I keep using that word. It wasn't weird. It's interesting. In retrospect, it was all of the flaws of that team laid bare in 5 games. Mm-hmm. It really made apparent that if that team wasn't hitting home runs, that team wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
Like I remember the first, I don't think they score in the first 2 games.
They score once in they lose 2-0 and they lose 2-1 in game 2.
And you could like see the team aging in these 5 games. Russ hit like 0.70, I want to say. It was an ugly, frustrating series. And I remember there was so much like arguing among the fan base about the batting order of all fucking things.
Yes.
And like, when do you drop Russ down and where do you put Ryan? No, it was Darwin Barney, I think. It was just like every flaw that team had, the Clevelands just exposed hard. It was
serious pitching, as you said. They avoided the home run, and they didn't have we'll be frank, they didn't have the Chris Colabello guy who was cheating in the lineup that magically hit 300, right? They didn't go out and get that guy. They were relying on Ezekiel Carrera to play, and they had BJ Upton and again, Goins was playing every day, and Darwin Barney and Justin Smoke was sort of still an unproven sort of commodity guy. It wasn't as complete of a team as we had seen the year before. And we talked about this as we relitigated this year previously, that this was what we thought was the big failing, was there is no real push. They don't really do anything at the deadline to get them in. And then it's shaking in his boots. It's Ryan Merritt in game 5, 4 1/3, 2 hits, 3 strikeouts. He does not give up a run, and the Jays go quietly. They do not score in game 5. I think really an unbelievable way for this to end. For this team, so much offense, and they go down really 3 runs in their combined 4 losses. Hard to believe.
Yeah, and I remember the ending of this one, where it was just like, just get anything going. And I think it ends on like an infield pop-up. And it was one of those like stand up and just walk out kind of feelings. But I met my wife that day, so it wasn't all bad.
Incredible. Isn't that incredible? I remember also thinking that this was going to be Bautista's last game as a Blue Jay. It was also in the air.
That's right.
Somebody streaks across the field in the middle of his last at bat of this game. He hit leadoff in this game. Speaking of your batting order issues, they hit Bautista leadoff in this game, and Russ hit fifth as Gibby was in truly anything to get the offense going mode.
And then we talked ourselves into 2017 team for 6 months.
Yeah, I was as guilty of that as anybody, unfortunately. But listen, that's what I do. I
was like second wild card. I remember the argument was you telling me that they're worse than the Twins, and turns out they were significantly worse.
Significantly, yeah, truly very bad.
Opening day 2017, among the most depressing Blue Jays games I've ever been to.
Yeah, that was a rough scene. That's it. That is the book closed on the 2015 Blue Jays. I know we didn't get into the specifics of the offseason, but we talk 2016. We talk the Royals series in other story times. So you are free to go and find those bad boys because you're a member of the Patreon if you're hearing this. So you know where to find them. We thank you so much for subscribing and for listening to Sportsfeld Storytime.